Hi, and welcome to Indigo Starfire. My name is Bevin, and in this reading, I'm going to be looking into, is new love on the horizon for you? There are three groups to choose from. Group 1 is the Carnelian. Group 2 is the Lapis Lazuli. And group 3 is the Goldstone. So if you want to take a moment to center, focus on your breathing, and feel whichever group, maybe multiple groups or perhaps all of the groups that you're most drawn to. I'll give you a minute to make your selection and then we'll get right into it. And there are timestamps in the description box of the video for each group if you'd like to jump ahead, which I do recommend using so that you can skip over me shuffling cards in between groups to clear the energy of the group I've just read for and tap into the energy of the group I'm about to read for. So again, I'll give you a minute. Please use the timestamps and we'll get into your reading. Hi, Group 1. You chose the Carnelian. So I'm going to start with tarot and oracle cards, and then I will get into some attribute cards and close it out with initials. So let's take a look and see, is new love on the horizon for you? Okay, so we have Wheel of Fortune, which is mutable energy, Pisces, Gemini, Virgo, and Sagittarius. Queen of Swords, which is air energy, Aquarius, Gemini, and Libra. Eight of Pentacles, which is earth energy, Capricorn, Taurus, and Virgo. Eight of Wands, which is fire energy, Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. Broken Heart. Fourth chakra, Archangel Raphael. Forest, breath. And DNA, karma. So this Wheel of Fortune is definitely indicating that there's about to be some forward momentum in your love life. Excuse me. Springtime energy is coming through very prominently with that here in the Northern Hemisphere. We are about a week and a half away from the official start of spring on March 21st. It feels to be something, though, the energy that's coming forth from this, it's almost, and the flowers, tulips and daffodils are factoring in very strongly. I'm getting kind of a vision of that in my third eye. So it feels to be as we're leaning a little bit more into the season of spring. So kind of later during Aries season, maybe early in Taurus season, for example. So like late April, early May, when the ground has begun to thaw, the flowers have really started to blossom and burst forth. The air is getting charged with electricity. There's warmth. It feels that this will definitely coincide with kind of a revival in your love life in some manner. This ties in with the idea of the broken heart, a series of maybe sort of failed connections that you've had, a substantial heartbreak that you've really been struggling to move beyond. This is accompanied by the fourth chakra, the heart chakra energy, and also with all of this green here on the forest and the breath. It's speaking about the renewal of that heart space, a profound healing which takes place through this new experience in love. Any kind of doubt and pessimism that you may have had, this is like the double dose of counteracting the heartbreak that you had maybe gone through in previous experiences in love, maybe in general in your love life or in the last kind of like season or phase. This is shifting out of that energy of being very sad and withdrawn, disappointed, or again, pessimism is the word that's coming through, and kind of leaning into this energy of renewal. It feels like, and this is a good thing with new love, this person is like a breath of fresh air in a lot of ways, very different from people that you'd been dealing with in the past. This may have been somebody or is somebody who has gone through some phase of like a spiritual awakening. They may have been through a series of heartbreaks of their own, something very substantial that they've been trying to work beyond, that helps them, has helped them, is helping them to step more into the space of compassion. So this can really tie into two people who are investing in themselves, learning to love themselves, filling their own cup first. If you had been dealing with a lot of codependency in your past, it feels that this new person is very much the opposite of that. This is a situation where, you're both really able to sort of maintain your independence, your autonomy outside of the connection, and also find, that really common ground, that kind of entwined energy here with these two serpents. So it's like individuality and yet this unity, this oneness that is found within the situation. With the Queen of Swords and also with this Eight of Wands, these are both cards of communication here, very direct communication. So that energy of directness, this can often tie in for me with sort of somebody that you're meeting face to face. There may be an online component to this, either somebody that you first encounter online. There could be a lot of like texting, emailing, direct messages back and forth, but this feels like somebody that approaches you, or you strike up a conversation with them in the material world first and foremost. So there's a lot of physical contact between the two of you, getting together, going out, enjoying the sunshine, enjoying, the spring air. For those of you in the Southern Hemisphere, you're getting ready to step into the season of autumn. So, the weather's still nice enough that you can go outside. You can enjoy that time outdoors in, a sense of community. Festivals and celebrations are factoring in really strongly. So for some of you, like in the Southern Hemisphere, this may have to do with like harvest festivals as a point where, you're getting together. Maybe you're getting together with friends. This is how you meet this person. For those of you in the Northern Hemisphere, this can talk about like outdoor concerts, outdoor venues, farmers markets, things like that. Kind of, I'm getting like, art walks. So I don't know, depending on where you are, what kind of your town or like major cities do, but it's bringing to mind the idea often of like art galleries or kind of like little shops in sort of like a city center will often do things on the weekends, where they're kind of like open later than usual and people kind of like gather. to just sort of look around at the shops or different kind of artists who feature their wares, who might not ordinarily present themselves, but it's like, maybe on Saturdays or once a month, or like a particular time at the month, this really happens. It's really open to that, especially in the warmer months. So something like that might be very significant as far as like where you meet this person. It's bringing to mind also the idea with these two entwined serpents here of somebody that kind of, you go out on a group date with people, or like a group kind of get together, maybe with coworkers. There could be like a work connection with this person with the Eight of Pentacles. People are bringing like plus ones, they're bringing friends, or they're bringing people with them outside of the office. It's the idea of like a large group congregating together. And for a lot of you, this might be how you meet this person. Or even just sort of out and about at one of these, kind of events. Again, it's very much like tangible, real-time, face-to-face kind of energy here that then may carry over into the exchange of contact information, getting to know one another further, through kind of that virtual method, that virtual means. But it still feels like somebody that is enough in your material landscape that you're able to get together with them for like face-to-face interactions, eating outdoors, eating at like, patios at restaurants, for example, going on walks, spending time in nature is factoring in very heavily in this energy. And also with this idea of communication, it's tying in as well with these entwined serpents. You two might have a lot in common with one another, some kind of shared community, shared interest. This is bringing to mind like the idea of birds of a feather in a sense, that the conversation flows really easily. You find that you have a lot in common with this person. If this is somebody in the workspace, maybe somebody who you've worked with for a while, you have like a rapport with them in that professional sense. They might be getting ready to ask you out. There may be some kind of like a company picnic or get together, birthday parties, things of that nature, like some kind of a corporate retreat that you might start spending time more with this person, and then it sort of blossoms into that next kind of level of romance with one another. But it's the idea of very quickly establishing rapport, somebody who, is very, again, that idea of like very direct in making their intentions known, making their feelings known. This isn't going to be somebody who's going to like love bomb and overwhelm though, which may have been something you dealt with in the past. That might be something you're a bit kind of like cautious, you're a bit guarded about. You're using your discernment, you're using your wisdom, you've really learned from the experience of heartbreaks in the past what not to do this time around. So again, with this Wheel of Fortune, it's the idea of like shifting in a new direction, romantically speaking. Where this is like a very honest and truthful person. There's kind of like this organic buildup. Again, the idea of, even sort of like spring flowers emerging, or, the reference kind of to autumn is like the leaves turn color and they begin to sort of be shed or dropped from the trees. This isn't something that happens overnight. It's like a gradual process. So through a series of conversations, interactions, spending time with one another, it's quality time that's spent, where it feels like a very natural progression into kind of the blossoming and developing, the exchange of feelings, very mutual energy, the two of you, being very kind of like sensitive to one another's boundaries and barriers. Again, a lot in common, very similar sort of interests, styles of communication, a lot to talk about. Two people who find one another mutually engaging, very interesting. It's not like you're just placating somebody or that they're just telling you what you want to hear. There's this actual like something that is achieved through these conversations with one another. This may be something where, the ideas that are exchanged, you're really adding to the body of knowledge that each of you has. You're really, these are stimulating conversations. These are things where, it's leaving you with food for thought almost, where you're going away from these interactions with one another, doing further research on your own. In a lot of ways, they may help to sort of expand your perspective and horizon in some manner, and vice versa. It's like just even your worldview, the way that each of you sort of looks at the world, it's very compatible and yet very different, to where you're gaining a lot, you're learning a lot, you're expanding a lot on a personal level, intellectually speaking as well, to where this is something, it feels like it goes beyond the realm of just romance. It's two people who are truly enjoying and really getting something of value out of the time spent together, out of the conversations that are had with one another. This may be somebody who is a very emotional person with kind of all this heart-centered energy right here. They might consider themselves an empath. They may be in like a healing profession as well. This is a good listener who may have been working at this point in time to establish better boundaries for themselves, to assert themselves more. That might be a little bit difficult. They could be a little bit shy even, is why it's almost this gradual sort of culmination of the feelings between the two of you, where, they're so accustomed to being that shoulder for others to cry upon. They're so used to, valuing, kind of holding space for others to open up emotionally, that they have had a hard time historically, or even up to this point in time, really defining some barriers and creating sacred space for themselves to have their emotional needs kind of like expressed, honored, and met. In this circumstance, it feels that the two of you, with this idea of karma, this doesn't always have to be like a negative word. It feels that in some way you have a soul contract with one another, that through these interactions, you're almost helping one another to establish sort of a different way of approaching dynamics, romantically speaking, that through kind of the exchanges with one another, you're almost functioning to help this person to be more assertive about not just kind of being that endless, almost like point of receptivity, but to really, express themselves, express their authenticity. You're helping this person put into practice these theories of reciprocity that they've been working on within themselves. And it's very healing. They may also kind of perform that function for you as well. If you've been used to dealing with people with like really strong personalities, for example, very kind of stubborn people, or people who are very sort of opinionated and very rigid in their thinking, it's almost like this person represents kind of this breath of fresh air, this space where they genuinely want to hear what you think about things. They want to hear what's going on with you, how you feel, what your interests are. They're not just, trying to kind of create a web of space between the two of you and connectedness for them to just kind of dominate the situation. But it's really this sense of flow, this sense of ease, to where you may have kind of predetermined prior to this lifetime, or through the work that each of you has done on yourselves, you're really magnetizing in this opportunity for a new way of dealing and being with another person, romantically speaking. So it's a very beautiful energy. Somebody who, again, might be coming into your world, into your reality in the next few months here. So I'm going to get some of these attribute cards to dig a little bit deeper, to see what comes through about maybe some physical traits, personality traits, things they may do professionally to help you identify them. We've got December, so this can tie into obviously that sort of winter energy, or the zodiac signs of Sagittarius and Capricorn. Got the letter A. Law of attraction. Yeah, so this is, again, that idea of the work that each of you have been doing to heal from some heartbreak, learning to love yourselves in a different and more unapologetic manner, that it's drawing each of you into one another's experience. It's the idea that if you've been through a lot of very difficult karmic relationships in your romantic past, both of you, this is almost a karmic relationship in a sense, but like good karma. It's sort of the reward of cycles that you've closed out, that then you're able to kind of like magnetize in this very different experience from a lot of heartbreak and heaviness that you each have been dealing with. This is kind of the counterbalance to that, the counterweight to that, the reward of all of this effort and all of this love that you've been pouring into yourself. And we have business owner. So this is kind of tying in for me with that idea of like the outdoor markets, or like a farmer's market or something, with like little shops, like a little art walk or something. This can tie into somebody maybe that features their wares. They may be somebody who, owns a shop, owns a gallery, is an artist, or a craftsperson in some manner. This can tie into that business connection, the professional connection, with the 8 of Pentacles. This can also be somebody who has like a 9-to-5 job, but then they have like a side hustle, a side business, something that they're in the process of working toward opening up. Maybe each of you have sort of your own passion projects that you're working on. You each kind of have like similar business. E-commerce could be something that's coming up, or again, the idea of like working a day job and then having this other sort of like secondary or side business that you're each trying to grow. That can be sort of this idea of this very enriching conversation. You're bouncing ideas off one another, exchanging, really kind of sharing what you've learned, what works, and kind of what is best sort of left by the wayside, so that you're really taking something of value beyond just, enjoying one another's company, beyond just romance. There's a lot that's really learned and gained out of these exchanges with one another. And we have average height as a physical attribute. Got the letter I. And with these two initials right here, AI, this could be somebody who works in the tech industry, for example, maybe somebody who's a gamer, somebody who, has a lot of technical knowledge, very mathematically or mechanically oriented as well. Got the letter D. Spiritual awakening, yeah, so that was coming through as far as somebody who maybe has gone through some kind of heart chakra activation, some kind of, change in their life through maybe a series of heartbreaks where they've been working on their emotional health and well-being, working to sort of fill their own cup and come into a place of wholeness and oneness within, which is, I feel, what really contributes to the idea of like two people who are encouraged to be very autonomous, and yet at the same time there's this cohesion and unity between the two of you in the relationship. And we have freckles as a physical attribute. That can also be a sign of a lot of time spent outdoors. Somebody who, they get really tan, they get really freckly when they're out in the sun a lot. We've got well-groomed, so somebody who's very fastidious, neat and tidy. They look well-dressed even in sweatpants and a t-shirt. And we have older. So this can tie into somebody who's an old soul, a very empathic person, or there might be an age difference between the two of you. Dimples as a physical attribute. This can talk also about a lot of laughter and good cheer that is exchanged between the two of you, a lot of reasons to smile with this person. And we have desert. So that can bring to mind almost like, again, this idea of like outdoor concerts, Coachella is coming through as an example of that. This person may live in kind of a desert region. They may spend a lot of time hiking, maybe even hiking out in kind of nature trails or national parks out in desert areas. They may be from a country that has a lot of desert in it. This can also tie into somebody who has a military background. Maybe they were deployed in combat in a desert country or desert region. And it also feels like this person is almost an oasis in what might have been a desert in your love life up to this point in time. Not a lot of prospects, not a lot of hopefulness. Maybe you were leaning on a bit of pessimism, and all of a sudden this person comes in, and it's like manna from heaven. It's something that's very quenching for you, emotionally speaking. And we have city, so somebody who lives or works in an urban area. This can also tie into this idea of someone who lives in the same city as you. This is a local person, although you may have a lot of dealings and interactions with one another virtually speaking. It feels like you do meet one another in a face-to-face circumstance first, and you have the ability to meet up with one another for dates, to spend time together, physically interacting with one another. And we have synchronicity. So this can tie into the idea of like a group date, some kind of, people that you're getting together with. It's just almost seemingly random that you meet this person. A lot of kind of nudges and signs that might be encouraging you, almost like breadcrumbs provided by the universe that lead up to this pivotal sort of interaction point with this person. So maybe this is something where you got an invitation somewhere and you were kind of faltering about if you want to go, you're kind of tired, you're not really sure, and you get all these signs that are telling you to just get out, to just go, to respond to that invitation, a lot of insistence maybe from friends or family or, whoever has kind of invited you to go to this place. And by doing that, it's you run into this person, you meet this person. It is by no accident that the two of you have crossed paths with one another. It ties in with the idea, again, of law of attraction. You really are calling in one another through the work that you're doing currently, even at this time, to heal from heartbreak, to be very receptive, to keep an open mind and an optimistic outlook as far as what's coming in love for you. And we also have family. So this person could be a friend of a family member. Maybe they are a co-worker of somebody, a family member of yours. It can be, again, that idea of like a +1. So somebody who, is brought along maybe to a family member's wedding, for example. A date cancels. And so, they've got this extra ticket. They've got this extra reservation. So they bring somebody else along. This might even be where family fixes you up with this person. I've got somebody that I know I think would be great for you, and you're kind of like, I don't know, I don't really want a blind date, I don't really feel my best, I don't feel like doing this or that. And again, that idea of synchronicity, a lot of these signs kind of pointing you in that direction. And it's something that obviously, because it's new love, that you're very happy that you followed those signs, or that this family member or whoever it might be had really sort of orchestrated the two of you getting together. And we have outgoing. So this can again tie into the idea of sort of a community or group setting through which you meet this person. They may be the one to approach you first. Although they might be shy, it may take them some time to kind of open up fully, lean into that realm of romance. They may want to start off as a friend, kind of get to know you, get to spend some time with one another. It feels that they will definitely be the one to make the first move in the situation. We have scientist, so that can tie into somebody with kind of a mechanical mind, a mathematical mind. Maybe they were a science major. They could be a science teacher. Chemistry is coming in, a lot of chemistry between the two of you as well. A lot of compatibility that exists between you. And I'm also hearing astrophysicist, so this could be something that maybe they do professionally, or it's kind of like a hobby or an interest for them. If you resonate as a starseed, they may also resonate as a starseed. Even if you don't, they may consider themselves a starseed, or they may be on more of the, again, kind of like the science-minded perspective of ideas about space and astronomy and things like that. And we have serendipity, so very appropriate that that's coming up with the synchronicity. Again, this double confirmation of a lot of factors that add into how you meet this person. It is no accident. It almost feels that right now as we speak, there are wheels that are being set in motion to harken back to that wheel of fortune. Things are kind of turning in everybody's favor at this point in time, and at just the right time, just the right place. In what almost feels like, just a very happy coincidence, you could have easily missed one another. Again, maybe like a really big, function or event, something like, like a festival or a concert, something like Coachella, where there's like tens of thousands of people in attendance. And out of all these people, you've run into one another. That's probably only an example for maybe like one or two of you, perhaps more. But, just this idea of like the perfect kind of alignment, the stars really being aligned in this situation for the two of you to come together. And we have telephone. So this can tie in with, it's bringing to mind almost the idea of somebody who works in like the tech industry. So they may even live, the Silicon Valley in California, the Bay Area might be significant for some of you as far as a location for this. They may work for a major tech company, or they own a startup company. There could be a lot of, talking on the phone with one another, a lot of texting back and forth. But again, also this idea of being able to, get together face to face for interactions as well. We've got the letter E. Museum. So this could be somebody who maybe works at a museum, volunteers at a museum. This can tie into the idea of art. They may be an art history major, have studied art, are kind of an up-and-coming artist, for example. Maybe this is a museum that is open to the public, or that has some kind of like special function. something kind of in line with the idea of, outside of normal business hours. This might be where you meet this person. They might be somebody who studies archaeology. Maybe they have spent time in kind of a desert country, or they have interest in going there to learn about antiquity, and interest in like different cultures, different time periods in history as well. And we have adventurous, so somebody who might be into extreme sports, somebody who is well-traveled, who kind of lives a daring and adventurous life in some way. It's bringing to mind almost the idea of somebody with like a 9-to-5 job, and then on the weekends they do really extreme things as kind of their decompress, where they're going on their vacation. This isn't someone who's just going to go to the resort and sip Mai Tais. They're going to go and kind of immerse themselves in other aspects of culture and populations, and go to destinations that maybe people often don't travel to. And we have blonde hair as a physical attribute. Culture, yeah, so that ties in with the idea of museum, and again, what was coming through with, not the kind of person that their idea of a good time and a good vacation is, just going and like sitting on a beach somewhere. This is going to be, they're going to want to go hiking. They're going to want to go exploring in the jungle. They're going to want to go off-roading. They're going to want to kind of explore off the beaten path. Somebody who's really, interested and knowledgeable about a lot of different cultures. They may be multilingual as well. They could be a cultural anthropologist or a sociologist or a psychologist. They may have majored in any of these things in school or studied these things. And we've got the letter Q. Heart-shaped face as a physical attribute. And starseed, yeah, so confirmation of that as well. So I'm going to close this out with some initials, and this can be the first, middle, or last name of you or this person, or it could spell something out, just whatever resonates for you. Got B, Z, U, Y, F, C, A, S, and I. So those are your messages, group 1. I hope they resonated with you and that you enjoyed the reading. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, or share. If you'd like a personal reading, I offer them through my Etsy shop, and there's a link in the description box of the video for that. I offer a variety of pre-recorded video readings, written readings, and channeled letters. Turnaround time on everything is 5 to 7 days from the time of purchase. I also sell handmade jewelry, dream catchers, and sun catchers if you're interested in checking any of that out as well. And I've launched a second channel here on YouTube. It's called Lady of the Dawn Tarot, and there's a link in the description box as well as in the channel section of my page for that. The format there is a little different from here. I do pick-a-cards and general energy check-ins related to topics such as spirituality, ascension, self-love, and wellness. So if that sounds interesting, I invite you to check that channel out. I thank you for your support there, as well as for your continued support here on this channel. I hope to see you again in another reading. Please take care and be well. Hi, Group 2. You chose the Lapis Lazuli. So I'm going to start with some tarot and oracle cards, and then I will get into some attributes and close it out with some initials. And let's see, is new love on the horizon for you? Okay, so we have the Page of Cups, which is water energy, Pisces, Cancer, and Scorpio. Five of Swords, which is air energy, Aquarius, Gemini, and Libra. Four of Swords, so more air energy. Strength, which is Leo. Financial constraints. Angel of Strength. Autumnal equinox, release. And Green Man, synergy. So this Page of Cups does confirm that there is new love that is coming in for you. It may be something that could be kind of slow to arrive. It's still in the process of kind of growing in terms of some cycles that you are maybe needing to close out, or this person is in the process of closing out, a bit of like a lack mentality or moving on, maybe disconnecting from a situation, holding space for somebody where there's just a lack of movement, a lack of momentum. It can also be something where, if there's kind of almost like the idea of holding on to the past that might be very mutually experienced for both of you, with kind of this double confirmation of the strength energy right here, that you're both in this cycle of kind of closing something up, wrapping something up, needing time to kind of rest, recuperate, gather your own energy, move beyond sort of a state of loss, or almost a bit of kind of like pessimism or a closed off energy. Maybe a bit of guardedness. It's almost bringing to mind the idea of like a sign that says closed for maintenance. So you and this person maybe in the process of kind of like gaining your strength, building your confidence again after, a substantial loss in love, a substantial heartbreak, something where there'd been a lot of hope invested, and kind of those potentials that beginning had sort of withered on the vine. It hadn't really turned into anything, or had, turned into something where hopes were really dashed and had to be kind of moved away from in some manner. This energy of Leo is also bringing to mind Leo season, specifically Lionsgate energy, so August 8th. So it feels like somebody who might be a little bit further on the horizon for you, kind of like late summer, early autumn. Now, for those of you in the Southern Hemisphere, you're about like a week and a half away from the autumnal equinox, from the start of that energy. I am still drawn to this idea, kind of basing it off of the energies, like where I'm currently physically at in the world in the Northern Hemisphere. Autumn is still like 6 months away for us. We're just about ready to enter into springtime energy. So again, it's kind of feeling like, this might be some new love that's about 6 months away. It requires kind of like the releasing and the closing out of one chapter in order, and a little bit of time to sort of like heal and recover in some manner. For those of you who are saying to yourselves, I have closed out a chapter, I have been healing, I have been recovering, there may be something where it's almost like you're being encouraged to not just even release the past, but to, it's like an active process of needing to sort of take back one's power, to acclimate more to the sense of feeling very good with who you are right now in this moment, where you are in your life as a result of the choices that have been made, you know, a little bit of almost like energetic cords that might need to be sort of released. And if you've done that releasing work, it's this energy of almost needing to call in some abundance, to focus very much on, you know, being kind of comfortable with where you are at in your journey. Not that that's a gatekeeper to this new love coming in, but that it's just almost this, like this period of the next 6 months will be a very crucial place of building your confidence, building your stamina, building your inner strength in order to be able to, you know, kind of be repaired, or to learn and identify the own innate wholeness that you hold within in the heart space, that the love you're seeking, you don't need to look anywhere outside of yourself for it. And kind of as much as you've been working on that, it's almost like there's going to be a lot of growth potential that happens that must be done very individually for you and this new love connection over these next few months, so that when you're coming forth to one another, there's something, just, it feels like energetically speaking, a bit of residue and whatnot that you've kind of like moved beyond. You've turned the corner from any kind of like a lack mentality or anything that is still really kind of at the forefront of your perception, of your energy, of your focus, as far as what has gone wrong in love in the past. It's the idea of like releasing those narratives, those stories, those experiences, whether it's like one specific person or even like a series of disappointments, in some way rewriting that script and narrative inside, letting go in order for the new to come in. And it feels like, again, this double kind of Leo energy, this is something that you and this person in your own way that may look very unique for each of you as far as what that looks like. For one of you, this might be kind of like in the material sense, you know, recovering self-esteem, working on like physical health and well-being, maybe even picking up the pieces off of whatever was kind of lost as far as trust or resources in the material sense, through kind of disappointments in heartbreak, any kind of setbacks, and kind of the toll that took maybe upon your physical body, your health and well-being. For the other person, this feels more to be on the internal plane, so like a perception, self-esteem, you know, kind of the internal narratives, a bit of sort of like guardedness or almost anticipating loss, a lot of disappointment, or, you know, just kind of those emotional scars, that kind of like mental replaying of these scenarios that over the next 6 months, it's going to be a crucial time of releasing that. So two very parallel paths. This can speak to somebody who, you know, is very much in alignment with you as far as kind of the next phase of your soul journey in general. So this could possibly be a soulmate connection between you and this individual, and you're almost like you're moving in two different directions but towards one another. So the idea again of these parallel paths where there's something that is needing to be sort of let go of in different ways from each of you in order for kind of this potential, this possibility in love to become realized in the material world and to grow into the most kind of profound manifestation that it can be. Let me see, anything else that's really coming through here. This can tie into somebody who is a very independent person. I'm drawn to this idea of, you know, like the two cats on here. Also, if you resonate as a starseed, you may resonate as a Lyran starseed, you and this person, that can be coming through as well. But this can be somebody who's kind of, you know, again, it's the idea of like personal autonomy, coming into a place of independently being able to sort of sustain themselves, fill their own needs, maybe even in like a financial sense in some manner. This can tie into the idea of like sort of like the underdog story in a way. So this person may be in the process of kind of recovering from some sort of financial setback, you know, a lack of options, really sort of rebuilding from the ground up in some manner. This can be somebody who's kind of going through sort of a dark night of the soul in some way. You know, you might have been going through a dark night of the soul or have come out of it. And it's this idea of kind of rebuilding. It's different versions of yourself. Like if you were to interact with this person or meet this person, person at this point in time. It's almost like you wouldn't see one another. You're on two different kind of like planes of reality and two different worlds is really what's coming through here. Your focus, your surroundings. There are different priorities at this point in time, to where the time that it's taking for this situation to really develop or to come into sort of manifestation, it's through a necessary period of like personal release, transformation, and growth within each of you. I'm also really being drawn to the idea of Gemini, which I know we have that here with the two swords energy, but it's just kind of these, these two figures on both of these cards. So both of you might be Gemini. This might also be somebody who you become aware of. Maybe you start... It doesn't feel like you would necessarily start talking to them during Gemini season, but they may come into some form of your awareness, some form of your peripheral. Maybe this is somebody who, like if you have social media and there's somebody on your social media, this would almost be like a friend of a friend, kind of somebody who'd be, as you're looking through, like, who is this person following? Who are their followers, for example? You'd recognize this person. Something about them might stand out in that capacity. This feels to be something, though, with kind of these, the energy of the trees and the nature and the greenery, that this is somebody that you have the ability to come into physical proximity with. So it doesn't feel like somebody who would live like on the other side of the world from you, for example. It's something where, you might not necessarily know them right away, but it's kind of like there's like a shared sort of community, or there's somebody who's almost like an intermediary in this situation. It's like a friend of a friend kind of energy right here, to where when the time is, like, you almost become aware of one another prior to that point where then you're kind of like meeting up. Maybe you start to hear about this person. This can also be like a family member of a friend, for example, so you know of them by name, or you hear about them, you start hearing discussion about this person. They maybe also be kind of in some way connected to like a coworker, for example, and then it takes some time for you to kind of come into one another's physical awareness, into one another's like physical reality. But it is something to where, again, there's a lot of possibility for that. There's a lot of opportunity for that, for getting together with one another in the physical realm. It doesn't just have to relate to, something that's at a distance. In fact, it feels that most of your dealings with this person, it's not going to be online. Although they may have a social media presence, they might not be very active on there. It doesn't really feel like you're doing much as far as like talking on social media on DMs or anything like that. Obviously at some point, if this is new love, you're probably going to exchange phone numbers and be calling or texting one another, so that element's just kind of implicit here. But it feels like a lot of the dealings are in sort of like the tangible, real world circumstances, real world surroundings. It's bringing to mind almost the idea of somebody who's like adjacent to you. So this could be like a neighbor of somebody, maybe they become your neighbor in some way. They're in a process of kind of like rebuilding their life, rebuilding their circumstances, and it's kind of like this shared intersection from that point. It doesn't feel like something where somebody's trying to fix you up with this person. It's almost like you just become aware of them in some manner. Almost like you're going over to somebody's house and this person's hanging out there, for example, and that's how you get to know them. And it's something where, the other people that you kind of share in common, or that in common, they wouldn't automatically think that like you two would be a good match for one another. It's like nobody trying to fix anybody up. Maybe even just because of sort of the chapter that each of you have just come out of in your life, in your reality, what you're working through at present. It doesn't feel like a possibility. It feels very organic that this situation really develops between the two of you. Sort of like you spend time kind of looking at each other, eyeing each other from across the room, being in proximity to one another. It's bringing to mind almost the idea of like, if this would be sort of like a work connection, like let's say you work in a restaurant, a bakery is really coming through for somebody could work in a bakery, and just imagine that it's kind of it's a restaurant like in like a little commerce center, like a little shopping center, for example, and there's all these other kind of businesses in this shared kind of like business complex or shopping center. Like you're working in one place, they maybe work a couple suites down from you. It's a totally different organization. You see them in passing, maybe maybe you park by this person. You know, there's some area where people just kind of go and take their breaks, or they have their lunch, and you see them in that capacity. And so they're kind of like, they're in your physical world in some sense. And it takes time before, you know, for whatever reason, then the story will be different for everybody, that you're kind of coming together, you're starting that conversation, you're sparking that conversation with one another. It feels to be something that you might start talking about the weather, or just kind of like mundane or material facts, things to do with sort of like the tangible aspects of the environment. You're almost like a regular fixture in sort of a roundabout way in one another's kind of circumstances or reality. And that's kind of how this starts. It may be something that's very slow to build. Again, the idea of like late summer, early autumn is when they're first kind of, this person catches your eye or you catch their eye, but it doesn't feel like immediate feelings. It's almost just like there's a je ne sais quoi about this person. It's just something that you're very drawn to. They may be very kind of flamboyant in the way that they dress. There may be something that's very, that stands out about them in some manner. Red hair is really coming through, so there might be something about their hair. It may even look like a lion's mane, just a very thick head of hair, for example, something that just really catches your attention, to where you take note of this person, like, oh, that's that person that works in the shop 3 doors down from where I work, something like that. But that it takes time to kind of be in that sort of right place of seeking each other out. Maybe this person then comes into where you work, or you go into where they work, and there's just this period of time of kind of being in these parallel circumstances with one another that then develops into romance. A bit of guardedness on this person's part, a bit of heartbreak that they're needing to work through. So this is this element of patience, but that through patience, there's the ability to really experience and achieve something in this situation that's very fulfilling. You know, it's something that could turn into a long-term connection, but it feels that, you know, whatever sort of the nature, duration of this situation, it's something that, you know, you're very glad that the situation takes time to develop. It's something that really adds to the measure of each of your existences, regardless of if it's just somebody that you're with for a season, maybe like a summer love, for example. You know, somebody who then kind of, I'm getting the idea of like somebody who then goes away to college. So this may be something that's like a very short-term situation, relatively speaking, for each of you. This may also be something where both of you are home from college, and this is kind of like your summer jobs, and you're seeing one another. And so it could even be this period of sort of like you interact with one another, then there may be this pause of like you go away for the school year again, you're coming back for breaks or, you know, vacation or something, and you kind of like see this person again and again over a period of time before, you know, the romance develops between the two of you. But it does feel to be something that at first glance, there might not be a lot there. There's almost like a lack of compatibility, or just not a lot that you perceive that you really have in common, or like a reason to talk to one another. A bit of kind of guardedness or hesitation about opening up to love again. But once that threshold is really crossed, it'll be in different ways for each of you. It feels like, you know, you're very kind of aware of one another's boundaries. So it's giving me this idea of kind of like slowly stretching into this, something that may have kind of like a long-term potential to it, in the sense of when you first become aware of them versus like when it develops into, you know, those feelings that blossom and that are expressed, when it becomes something that could be defined as new love. It might be a period of like several months, up to a year, maybe even 3 years. But, you know, it's something where the purpose and the nature of this reading is not, okay, what's your next disappointment in love? This is something that, you know, this final card here, this green man, this synergy, you know, you come to an understanding with one another. It's something that there is balance that is achieved. There is, you know, a process of sort of stepping into your own personal power, that then you're able to really meet each other on that plane to activate the greatest potential of what's possible in love in this situation. So I'm going to get some attributes, and there's a little bit of everything in here. There's physical characteristics, personality traits, zodiac signs. We'll just see what else wants to come through. Okay, so we have business owners. So this can tie into the idea of some kind of job connection with you. It doesn't feel like they would be your boss or your manager, but maybe they own a business that is in sort of near proximity to yours. This idea of like the two strength cards can tie into you're both in the same line of work. Maybe you're both business owners. Maybe you both own little cafes in the same kind of like retail space, for example. And we have brainy, so that can tie into like a school connection. This can also really indicate somebody that you share classes with. So that can be that element of distance. Or maybe you've had, classes with one another. You go your separate ways for summer vacation. You come back around and you've got more classes with one another, but it takes time to sort of, build that rapport. Maybe it starts off as like one of those big kind of like 300 person general education, core classes. And as the years kind of go by, as you're in college or whatever, eventually you end up in like that small lecture, that small kind of specialized group where you're able to then have those interactions with one another. So it's somebody that you're aware of at a distance, but then it takes time to kind of like come into that place of that one-on-one interaction with one another. They may be somebody who is majoring in business. Maybe they're going to business school. They're really good with finances. They're really good at kind of sensing and seizing opportunities as well. Somebody with a very high IQ, somebody who may be studying very technical subjects as well. And we have black hair as a physical attribute. Gifted. Yeah, so this can tie into the idea of somebody with a high IQ, somebody with a lot of technical knowledge, some kind of special skill or ability, something that has maybe led to a scholarship to school, for example. Somebody who is very prosperous, who has really turned kind of come from almost like humble means and stepped into this energy of abundance. You may kind of first encounter them when they're just starting off in this process, and so it takes time for them to come to a place of being flush, financially speaking, before they're in that energy of confidence where they're willing and able to kind of turn their attentions to love and romance. And we have motorcycles, so that might be their preferred means of transportation. They may work on motorcycles, maybe they collect motorcycles, or they work in a motorcycle dealership even. And we have fashion, so that can tie into kind of the flamboyant sense of style, something very unique about their manner and way of dress. And I'm also hearing their manner of speech. So this person may have an accent that is different from wherever it is that you are from, or whatever your accent is. That might be something that really stands out for them. This can tie into somebody who is going to school for fashion, works in the fashion industry. Maybe they are a model or have done that in their past as well. And we have smile. So this can tie into the idea of somebody that is kind of in your world, in your proximity, but maybe you only just sort of smile and nod at one another over a period of time when you're in sort of that large 300 person core curriculum class. And then, as the years go on, then it's just the smile from across the room turns into those one-on-one conversations, those group projects as you get into smaller and smaller, more specialized classes with one another. This might be somebody also with a smile that lights up a room. Somebody with dimples, with very straight white teeth, or something about their smile, about their grin is just, it's very unique. It's very endearing and heartwarming. And we have weddings, so this could possibly be your forever person. That idea of synergy, this kind of working with one another, this reciprocity. So that can kind of explain this sort of like slow momentum that it's building here. Of course, that won't apply for all of you, but for some of you, again, this idea of, things just needing to kind of percolate and close out as far as cycles within each of you, needing to step more into this confidence, this empowered energy in order to come together at just the right time. time with one another. I'm also getting this idea of like a catering company, so something to do with food and a restaurateur that's coming up as well. So maybe somebody who's even like a wedding singer, maybe they're in a band, and that can be how you kind of first catch sight of this person, as they are the music at a wedding that you're not getting married, but you're part of like the bridal party or a groomsman, or maybe you've done something. Maybe you do like wedding dresses, like bridal couture, for example. You sell tuxedos or whatever that is, and this could be somebody that works also in the wedding industry. So maybe even like a wedding planner, for example. So you kind of like know of one another by name, of one another, kind of on site, but it takes time before, maybe a couple hires both of you to work on the same wedding. And so they're kind of like in your world, but not necessarily intersected with you at first. And we have family. So this can tie into the idea of somebody who, is kind of a colleague, a friend, a neighbor of a family member. Maybe you see this person, out in their yard, out on their balcony when you're visiting family. So that can be that kind of like 6 degrees of separation energy at first between the two of you. And we have Ascension. Yeah, so somebody who might be in the middle of a dark night of the soul, just getting ready to go on that, working through some lack, some inner fears, kind of revamping their kind of the way they present themselves to the world, making a lot of changes, maybe even going back to school with that reference kind of to college and to education and learning. They're in a process of like growth and transition that is a necessary kind of prelude for love developing between the two of you. Okay, and we have friend of a friend. Yeah, so that was coming through with kind of the 6 degrees of separation. So somebody who might be on sort of like the outskirts of your life. But again, it's something where they're almost just there. It's not like it doesn't feel like anyone tries to fix you up with one another. It's just, you see them, know them as so-and-so's friend, so-and-so's colleague, so-and-so's neighbor, so-and-so's family member. And you're kind of familiar with one another, of one another, but it takes time before you meet and those feelings develop. And we have straight hair as another physical attribute. Museum. So somebody who might possibly be older than you. Maybe they are into archaeology, history. They work in a museum. They like to spend time at museums. This can bring to mind an artist as well. Maybe they have work that they feature at times during, art shows that are in museums, for example. And we have banker. So somebody with that kind of financial constraints that is in a process of working on their finances. It feels that is crucial in order to stepping up this self-esteem within themselves. Maybe recovering from a bad business decision, something that failed, like a failed business that they had to shut down. And so at this particular point in time, or maybe when you first encounter them, you are sort of witness to that. You're aware of that's sort of their first priority. And when they come into this place of really creating order and structure for themselves again, kind of balancing out the scales for themselves, that's when the love story between the two of you is able to commence. They may also work in finances and banking. They may be a loan officer, or they have to do something with credit as well. And we have Aries as a zodiac sign that might be featuring prominently in their chart. This can also tie into the months of March and April as significant to this connection. And we've got craftsperson. Yeah, so somebody who might be very gifted artistically speaking, somebody who may have a side business. They make something with their hands, for example. Soul recognition. So this can definitely be a soulmate energy with those 2 strength cards right there. This can be that je ne sais quoi, that as you really catch sight of one another, you sort of make that eye contact and smile. There's just always this kind of like this curiosity, something where as much as they are just on the peripheral, they're not completely overlooked. You're not completely overlooked, but it takes some time to kind of intersect with one another and explore that. And we have reserved. So this may be somebody who is kind of quiet, a little bit shy. They've got a lot on their plate or a lot on their mind when they first meet you. This may be somebody who's very secretive about their plans, what's going on with them professionally speaking. They may be in the process of trying to build or grow something, and that kind of takes a lot of their focus. And we have well-groomed, so somebody who is very fastidious. They may work somewhere that requires them to wear like a suit and tie or a uniform in some manner. Somebody who's very particular about the clothes that they wear. They may also really be into like high fashion, for example, something that stands out amongst other people. And we have construction, so they might work in the construction field. This can talk about finances or loans, like home loans, for example. This may be somebody who fixes and flips houses. This can tie into the idea again of like that they are closed for maintenance, closed for construction at this point in time. They're in the process of rebuilding themselves, improving themselves, coming into a place of balance within themselves that is necessary for the two of you to align with one another on the same path. This can also be somebody who is very handy around the house, kind of a do-it-yourself person who's really into little projects and tasks and always has something that they're looking to kind of fix and improve on. And we have X. So it is possible that this person, it almost feels like in some way they may physically kind of resemble an ex of yours, or there's some kind of like, it's possible like they have the same first name as your ex. This is new love, so just the theme of all of these groups. This is not somebody from the past returning, but this may be somebody who knows your ex, knows of your ex, or there's this idea of almost like needing to recover from something, some kind of a financial loss that had occurred from like an ex partnership. So they're coming towards you sort of fresh out of heartbreak, a little bit guarded, a little bit, not wanting to kind of repeat the same mistakes of the past. And we have serendipity. So a very happy coincidence that you and this person run into one another, a series of coincidences that kind of lead to this reconnection with one another from that first kind of phase of seeing each other, catching one another's eyes, sort of the smile from across the room. And it's almost like, it almost feels that you see this person or you run into them in really random places. Like you see them from across the room. Hey, there's that guy. Hey, there's that girl. Hey, there's that person from wherever. There was that person from my first year, biology class, or whatever the situation is, that you keep just sort of like coming back around into one another's awareness. And it's this idea of almost like slowly each time that distance between the two of you, it diminishes until finally you're face to face with one another in a very balanced state within yourselves. It's possible even that, and when you first sort of meet or become aware of this person, they may also be like in another relationship, for example, where they're needing to close that out, heal from that, move away from that. They may be in the process of actively doing that at this point in time. Synchronicity. Okay, so that fits in really well with, the idea of serendipity and synchronicity. A lot of happy coincidences in this interaction with one another, and kind of how maybe even across like a lot of different venues. Again, you run into them in different kind of places. You see them in the classroom, maybe you then see them when you're at some kind of an event or a function, like on the other side of town, for example. Maybe you see them even when you're out of town. This person keeps like popping up into your awareness, very distinct energetically speaking, where it takes time for you two to physically interact with one another, but they definitely catch your eye for some period of time before that. And we have desert. So this can be somebody who is of a heritage, maybe that is kind of a desert region, a desert country. They may be Middle Eastern descent. They could have lived in the desert at some point in time. Maybe they're going to school in like a desert area. The state of Arizona is coming through as well, is very significant for this, as well as New Mexico. They may like to spend time out in the desert, or it's bringing to mind almost like the energy of a vision quest. This person's still in the process of trying to find themselves when you first kind of become aware of them, and it takes them time to come into a place of balance and restoration. They may be actively working towards some kind of purpose or higher calling within themselves as well, that you're almost seeing them at sort of that initial phase. And then the time becomes right a little bit later on for the two of you to really connect with one another in love. And we have younger, so this can be somebody who kind of has a beginner's mind, a very curious person, kind of a student of life. Maybe again they've gone back to school after doing something else, maybe choosing to work for a while, and they're kind of going back to college later than say average people would, for example. So they might be around or surrounded by a lot of people that are younger than them, even in terms of their life experiences. It may be something that's kind of out of place for people around them, or there could be an age difference between the two of you. Excuse me. We also have scientist. So this can talk about a lot of this kind of intangible chemistry between the two of you, this draw that keeps compelling you back in one another's direction. This can be somebody who is a science major as well, or a science teacher. Got the letter A. And firefighter. So that might be something that they are doing professionally. They're working towards. That can tie in with that energy of like that mane of red hair as well. So I'm going to get some initials, and this can be a first, middle, or last name of you or this person, or it could spell something out, just whatever resonates for you. Got D, S, V, H, Z, E, and L. So those are your messages, group 2. I hope that they resonated with you and that you enjoyed the reading. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, or share. If you'd like a personal reading, I offer them through my Etsy shop, and there's a link in the description box of the video for that. I offer a variety of pre-recorded video readings, written readings, and channeled letters. Turnaround time on everything is 5 to 7 days from the time of purchase. I also sell handmade jewelry, dream catchers, and sun catchers if you're interested in checking any of that out as well. And I've launched a second channel here on YouTube. It's called Lady of the Dawn Tarot, and there's a link in the description box as well as in the channel section of my page for that. The format over there is a little different from here. I do pick-a-cards and general energy check-ins related to subjects such as spirituality, ascension, wellness, and self-love. So if any of that sounds interesting, I invite you to check that channel out. I thank you for your support there, as well as for your continued support here on this channel. I hope to see you again in another reading. Please take care and be well. Hi, Group 3. You chose the Goldstone. So I'm going to start with some tarot and oracle cards, and then I'll get into some attribute cards and close it out with initials to see, is there new love on the horizon for you? Okay, so we have the Queen of Pentacles, which is Earth energy, Capricorn, Taurus, and Virgo. Three of Wands, which is fire energy, Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. Five of Pentacles, so more earth energy. Judgment, which is Scorpio. Walking away. Goddess of the Moon. Waterfall, effortless. And Milky Way, perspective. So it looks like there definitely is the ability to experience a very loving and nurturing connection with somebody, but it might almost be something which really takes time to grow and germinate between the two of you, due to a lot of obstacles that you may initially face with one another. Distance could definitely be a factor. Somebody who lives in another country, maybe even on the other side of the world. Maybe this person travels a lot for business. You could meet them while you are traveling. Exchange student is coming up as well. Maybe somebody who is, in your country or you're in their country on a work visa, for example, that expires. You're needing to go your separate ways. So this is something that it feels like it has a lot of long-term potential to it, but there's definitely something where there's a period of uncertainty about how are we going to make this work, that there's a lot kind of challenging this. It might also in some way challenge your idea of kind of what love should look like if you've just been really kind of looking in a particular radius right around your kind of surroundings. You've got some very specific sort of requirements in a way. You've been falling short with that, coming up short, not having any serious prospects as far as romance is concerned. There's also this energy of like when you cast a wider net, that's how you interact with this person. The idea of distance can also indicate that they may be a little bit further on the horizon. This person could be, I'm hearing, a year out. So relatively speaking, it does not feel like they are very near onto your horizon. And it feels like something where there's almost like a series of maybe sort of like casual dates that you're needing to go on, people that you think might have the potential to turn into something romantically speaking that you've had to walk away from, that you've had to kind of close the door on that, some other cycles which are needing to be sort of closed out, something that is needing you and this person to almost like broaden your perspectives in some manner, or even the idea of like somebody who lives at a distance, maybe, travel as a significant factor for how you'll meet them, or like a work visa, for example. You're just not in one another's worlds. You're just not aware of one another. You're not in one another's orbit. You are so completely at a distance from one another that you don't even factor in, energetically speaking, it feels like at this point in time. But with this Queen of Pentacles and the idea of judgment, it again is this idea of something which awakens, something which blooms, something which arrives at a time where kind of you're looking all around and all you're maybe experiencing is kind of endings, crickets. There's not a lot of potential. This might be something that also, as you've walked away from a job, for example, you've relocated, maybe you've gotten a promotion that takes you to another state, takes you to another country, for example, that can really coincide with how you meet this person. It feels to be a very deep emotional connection. This person in general themselves may be a very deep empathic person. They may work in some kind of healing profession, maybe a counselor. Our grief counselor is coming up as well. There may be kind of some toxic cycles and patterns and habits that they are needing to work through, some kind of a series of losses or a perspective of loss that they are in the process of needing to really close out, that almost is taking their full attention at this point in time. It's not time for you to meet this person yet, but this reading really is serving to say that they are out there, that love is out there, this feels like a very nurturing connection, something where you will feel very safe to open up and express yourself freely emotionally, an environment, romantically speaking, where you will be really nurtured to explore and grow into your highest potential as an individual. Somebody who there might be some kind of like financial difference between the two of you, or you come from like two different worlds, for example. That might be an obstacle. It feels that maybe you or maybe this person is like, how can this really work out? Where it's almost bringing to mind somebody who's like a business owner and an intern, for example, where there's a little bit of like, oh, is there impropriety here? How can this work? Maybe this is not the most appropriate circumstance or situation, to where, again, it's the idea of like distance, obstacle, watching from afar. Definitely an online connection could be something that's factored in here, to where it takes time to either build trust because of the nature of the circumstances. This may also be something where if there's like a professional or like a contractual obligation, again, the idea of like a manager and an employee, or a business owner and like an intern, for example. Teacher student is something else that's also factoring in here, that when you kind of first come into contact with this person, it's not necessarily, there's like this spark, there's this chemistry, but it's not necessarily an appropriate situation. So you must just kind of like watch one another with longing from afar. There's a sense of some kind of cycle needing to close out or come to a completion, where your role in one another's lives changes. The title changes, the dynamic changes, you both kind of move in your separate directions. Then you can visit that idea of judgment and kind of this resurrection. Then you are free to explore these feelings with one another. This may also tie into somebody who, if this is a professional connection, somebody who quits or gets fired from the workplace and then reaches out to you after the fact, or you kind of like run into them maybe somewhere else after, another cycle. So like a month later, a couple months later, maybe a year later, or even somebody, if this could be somebody that you worked with previously that was laid off, was fired, or quit the job, that you will then run into again. It's kind of like all hope is not lost. That kind of that passion or that potential between the two of you, which was really unactualized. It was just sort of looked at from a distance, this longing from a distance, that there's hope for this to be explored further down the line. Now, since the topic of this reading here is about new love, this is not somebody that you've been in a romantic connection with. There may have been like this chemistry between the two of you, a lot that was unspoken, a lot that really kind of surged beneath the surface. So when that kind of rebirth energy, that resurrection energy comes in, it's almost like because those physical circumstances have changed, that dynamic or how you relate to one another, that is different. Then it's the time to really explore, to kind of uncap those feelings which are within, and to sort of see what can build from this, what can grow. Because previously we were kind of just having to watch each other from a distance. It was kind of like look but don't touch, kind of like a forbidden fruit kind of energy here. It may have also been something where, this person met you at a time when you were in another partnership with somebody else. So this could be somebody that was like a friend of your ex, for example, maybe even a coworker or a former coworker that knew you were in a relationship. Maybe you were married, you were living with someone, long-term dating situation. Fast forward to that circumstance comes to an end, that chapter of your life closes, you move, you move forward in your life into some kind of new cycle or phase, and your paths cross again with this person. Then the time is right for the two of you to explore, without all of this kind of like worry of what would people think. That feels to be definitely a factor, at least in the early kind of situation of this, no matter what that sort of obstacle is that is keeping you almost feeling that you need to keep the connection at arm's length, or that it's a very, this isn't just like internal fears. This feels to be like some physical real world obstacle that, probably to do with distance or even like the interference of a third person. Not like an ex that's pulling someone back, but almost like somebody who's partnered up with somebody else, or something to do with sort of their title or their position relative to the other person. That it's like a set in stone prohibition in this circumstance, where you're both not free in that initial kind of interaction with one another to move forth into, what can happen. So it's distance, it's cycles that are needing to be kind of closed out. It's time that goes by, and then you almost re-encounter one another again. You seek one another out again. Maybe this person finds out then that you're single. This person has, quit or been laid off at the workplace, and, through sort of almost the idea of like the stars aligning with this idea of the Milky Way, you come into the awareness of this person again outside of the realm of kind of the professional environment. Then the time is right. Then they've kind of moved out of, whatever sort of caused the decay or the dissolution of that previous sort of circumstance. They're in a different place in their life. They've kind of risen beyond whatever that sort of circumstance was, or those series of conditions, or those set of variables, to where then the time is kind of right for the two of you to explore this. A connection with a lot of growth potential as well. This can be somebody that you have a long-term future with, so while they might be a bit further on the horizon, when that point on the horizon comes, this is almost like big long-term energy. So this could be somebody that you're in a connection with, you're dating them for a significant period of time. This feels to be a major love connection. There's a lot of love flowing between the two of you, a lot of unspoken love, or even just things that are needing to be held in, maybe at first because of those obstacles and barriers, some kind of a distance that once that is kind of uncapped, once you sort of let that flow, there's a lot of power to that. There's a lot of force. There's a lot of momentum. This might be somebody who on the surface seems to be very kind of like materially oriented, and they may have a very soft romantic side to them as well, something that's very unexpected, something that's very uncharacteristic from what you sort of see at first glance, or what they're needing to sort of present to the world. This may be a very logically minded person, a very practical person who's also got a very poetic side, a very romantic side, for example. So in essence, they're kind of like, they're just the right package, and it's not a side of themselves that they show to everyone. It's just really kind of reserved for special people. They're not sort of like spreading themselves thin in some way. This could be a very intuitive person, a very psychic person, a psychic connection between the two of you, an empathic bond between the two of you. You keep being almost like drawn back to thoughts of one another across the distance. As much as kind of your paths move away from one another, you're looking back, you keep reflecting about, wow, I wonder what could have happened with that person. I wonder whatever happened to so-and-so. It's that kind of an idea of, you make a substantial impact on one another during that kind of initial phase of the situation. As distance really happens between the two of you, there's all of this kind of like memory and recollection, a lot of reminders. People even that may kind of bring this person up in conversation if there's some kind of shared community, that you're informed of sort of like this person's progress while they're at a distance from you. It may even be something that they reach some kind of milestone, they reach some kind of accomplishment, and you might be the one that seeks them out to congratulate them. Something that may just start off as a very kind of surface level, a very friendly kind of gesture, and it turns into something so much more. Again, kind of the idea of it's unknown what the future of this potential can turn into, but there's a lot of very beautiful, nurturing energy energy to all of this, that this is somebody that when this love develops, when this love blossoms, this is someone that your heart is safe with. I'm hearing your secrets are safe with them. This is someone who may be like a confidant. This could be somebody that was almost kind of like your work wife or your work husband, and then again, you sort of went your separate ways, and then time goes by, maybe a year, maybe 2 years, maybe 3 years, and then you're coming back together, and it's almost like the circumstances are right, where it doesn't just have to be that sort of like workplace, connection that the two of you have. Now it's time to sort of develop things in the real world. In a lot of ways, this person, it feels, provides you with kind of the degree of emotional connection that had been lacking in other circumstances. Something where, this person's going to value you and appreciate you for who you are, not just what you look like, not just what you have, but who you are as a person. That might be something that is very unique and rare for you, something that really adds to, kind of the long-term value and the long-term potential of this situation, which again, might be a little bit far on the horizon. This could be kind of like a stop-start situation, a lot of chemistry, a lot of unactualized potential, longing from afar, watching from afar. Distance that might be a factor, even some kind of like distance where there's like a contract that needs to be sort of completed. This can bring to mind somebody that's going to like school abroad, or like a work visa, for example, somebody who's in the military, they're deployed abroad, and there's like a period of time, there's years where they cannot be in physical proximity to you, and there's no way around that. So it's just letter writing, it's phone calls, it's emails, it's that kind of a thing, before you actually then have this ability to explore in a tangible sense what might develop out of this situation. So I'm going to get some attributes, and there's a little bit of everything in here. There's physical characteristics, personality traits. There can be things that relate to their profession. There's zodiac signs, so we'll just see what comes through. Night owl. So this might be somebody who works nights. They're burning the midnight oil, trying to establish something for themselves. This can even tie into the idea of like they quit a job because they're branching out on their own in some manner. They're following their heart in a different direction. This can talk about a time difference between the two of you as well. That's kind of a block or an obstacle in this situation. And we have genuine, so definitely true love here. This feels to be something with long-term value to it, long-term potential to it, something where, regardless of the outcome, regardless of if this is your forever person or somebody that, is just in your life for a period of time, it feels that this will be a love that you look back on through the course of your life very fondly. You're very happy that you gave this person a chance. You're very happy to have exchanged with them on an emotional level. They represent in some way a lot of kind of like soothing and nurturing energy as far as romance and partnership is concerned, that really helps you in some way move beyond any kind of lack, any kind of ways in which your emotional needs had not been met by previous partners. This person really makes up for lost time. They help to kind of shift that standard. They help to really get you to realize that you raising the standard, raising the bar in terms of what you are expecting, what you're wanting, what you believe is possible in romantic connections, that it's not been in vain. We have heart chakra activation, so that can really tie into this idea of true love, something that can tie into a spiritual journey that somebody's on, a lot of healing that needs to take place, a lot of catharsis, heart chakra blockages that may kind of be sort of a factor, or again, this idea of like feelings that are held within. It's just kind of like longing and yet watching from afar. And when the floodgates are really open to that, it might be very intense, very overwhelming, but it's very beautiful energy, a lot of pure and genuine love in this situation. And we also have museums. So this person may be an archaeologist, an anthropologist, a cultural anthropologist. They may like spending time at museums. This can also tie into the element of somebody who lives at a distance, like in another country, or is from a different culture from you. This may also be somebody who is artistic, studied art or art history, or is an art teacher. And we have deja vu, so soul recognition. This can definitely be a past life connection with this idea of judgment as well, that you're coming back around to one another with Milky Way through time and space. This could have been a series of lifetimes where it was just kind of watching from afar the unactualized potential. And even though there are these obstacles in this lifetime, it's something which the two of you really have the potential and the present ability to overcome. This time your love story works out with one another. And I hadn't mentioned it, but with this Milky Way, this can also tie into that this person is a star seed. So if you resonate as a star seed, they may be a star seed as well. Space and astronomy, aliens, other kind of like galactic cultures, all of this can be, part of this person's field of study, field of expertise, something that inspires them artistically speaking, or something that they know a lot about, or even kind of like a point of connection between the two of you. We've got teachers. So yeah, an art teacher, a science teacher, a math teacher is coming through. Somebody who may even be like a spiritual teacher, somebody who might be getting, kind of like trained. Maybe they're studying in a different culture abroad, something to do. Tibetan Buddhism is specifically coming through here. So meditation may be very significant. They could be a yoga teacher as well. That can be kind of this degree of sort of impropriety as like the teacher and the student relationship, where they're, when you first sort of encounter them, they're not wanting to kind of complicate the dynamic between the two of you. Or there's a specific kind of like purpose or goal, reason that you have for coming together with one another when you first meet, that it takes time to kind of like close out that situation, certain other kind of like lessons that they're needing to close out in their own life, karma needing to teach them some lessons, they're needing to like learn a little more about life and about themselves. Maybe go through that heart chakra activation, so that when you kind of recommence your journey with one another further down the road, you're both very different people. And we have long hair as a physical attribute. It's bringing to mind the idea of somebody who wears a braid or braids in their hair. They may also have like beads or feathers, something maybe ceremonially or spiritually or even culturally that is significant with kind of the way they're doing their hair. They may keep their hair long for spiritual purposes as well. And we have ascension. Yeah, so the idea of kind of when you first meet them and whatever sort of limitations or conclusion happens to the situation. Again, not somebody that you're in a romantic connection with at first, but there's this unactualized potential, a lot kind of this chemistry, a lot sort of words that are unspoken, just longing from afar. But that from that point in time, and then when your paths kind of diverge from one another, there is this growth, this kind of reunion energy between the two of you, where then you're able to ascend the connection beyond this possibility into actualization. This can also tie into somebody who's on a spiritual path, on a process of awakening in some manner, some kind of version of themselves they're having to walk away from. And it's this actualized, authentic, higher vibrational version of this person and maybe the life that they are living, that they are leading. That is who you are meant to come into alignment with, that ties in with the idea of perspective and kind of like further down the road. So you get almost like a glimpse of the potential, the raw potential within this person. And then when you kind of reconnect with one another, then it's the time to open those doors to romance between you. And we have fastidious. So this could be somebody who, it's bringing to mind the idea of like feng shui, somebody who lives in a very minimalist lifestyle. I'm also hearing the word monastery. So again, like Tibetan Buddhism might come factor into this, come through for some of you. This can be somebody who sort of leaves the city life behind and goes and maybe studies at a monastery, lives at a monastery, devotes themselves to some kind of spiritual practice for a period of time. That can be this idea of like distance and disconnect before they come back around into your life. You run into them or they seek them out, or you seek them out again. This can also tie into somebody who is very well groomed, very meticulous, maybe even a little bit obsessive about how clean they are, or how they like to have everything in order, a very organized person as well. And we have opinionated, so something that they may be responding to as far as like a higher calling, some kind of soul purpose. This is bringing to mind almost, and it won't be a story that resonates with everyone, but it's almost bringing to mind like the idea of somebody that you work with that then is like fired or laid off. This may be because of some kind of like workplace conflict, some kind of like a fiery temper, something where they were at odds with somebody. And then they almost like need to go and work on themselves, temper themselves down in some manner. And when you cross paths with them again, sort of further down the road, this is a very different person. They've learned to rein in that highly opinionated area of themselves. They've moved more into a state of kind of zen, of live and let live, rather than kind of needing to have everything their way. And we have long distance. Yeah, so that's that confirmation right there. Distance being a factor, maybe even something that, is very long term. It takes a long time from that point when you first intersect with this person to when romance develops between the two of you. This is like a long game kind of situation. So they may even be a bit distant on the horizon coming in for you. And this may be something that kind of takes years to really unfold to that fullest potential. But we're asking here about is new love on the horizon. So this is significant enough that despite the fact some of you might be rolling your eyes and that idea of distance and like, I don't want to wait years. This person, definitely feels like worth the wait. Again, though, with that walking away, there may be a series of kind of like casual encounters, people that each of you are sort of like dating. You're calibrating yourselves to one another, that, whatever comes into your life prior to that, it doesn't fall into that category of love. It might be people that you have a good time with. Maybe there's some connection, there's some kind of spark, and then it just doesn't really turn into anything. But as far as love is concerned, this person is, at a distance. It is a while before this really kind of materializes and manifests for you. And we have popular, so somebody who could be well liked, well regarded in their particular field. I'm hearing expertise. So this may be somebody who even, goes on a spiritual quest and, turns into somebody who helps and is kind of a way shower, like a light worker sort of energy. They gain a lot of fame, a lot of popularity, a lot of notoriety. That idea of like an online long distance connection. This can be somebody like that you knew or that you worked with, maybe at one point in time earlier in your life. Fast forward years later, and you come across them, like an algorithm recommends them. They've got a YouTube channel, they've got a podcast, they've written books, they teach classes. It's just a very different person from who you knew at that initial kind of phase or stage. A lot of people responding very well to, whatever it is they have to say or share, anything about their personal journey, whatever transformation has taken place. It is something that is universally applauded by people. The version of them that is this, new love for you it feels like much more well-liked, well-accepted. It's a better fit. It's a better version of themselves than kind of that initial phase. Like when you first sort of connect, that's like raw potential that is then sort of shaped into who they are truly meant to be in this lifetime, as they kind of come into that alignment with soul's purpose and with this version of themselves. Any kind of like lack, any kind of dissonance within their life is replaced by harmony and kind of the universe even applauding their efforts. And we have short. So this can tie into somebody who is short in stature. They may also have short hair. Or that can tie into that element of somebody that may have had a short temper sort of earlier on. That could be sort of why your paths diverged from one another, why they were laid off or fired from a job. That when, they kind of come back into your reality, they really have worked on that, on learning patience. They may have had a short fuse and they have extended that in some manner, maybe through a meditation practice, yoga, some kind of spiritual philosophy, some kind of dark night of the soul that they went through, a heart chakra activation, spiritual journey, just whatever that looks like. It'll be different for all of you. And we have culture. So yeah, they may be from a different culture, from a different country. This may be somebody who goes to another culture to study some kind of spiritual practice, some kind of a philosophy as well. Got the letter W. The letter T. Talkative. So there may be a lot of dialogue and exchange back and forth virtually between the two of you. This can also tie into somebody, who has some kind of like public presence. Maybe they write, they have a podcast, they got some kind of a platform where they talk about their personal journey or some kind of a practice or a philosophy that they adhere to. And it's also really this idea of like talkative is making up for lost time is really coming through here. A lot of words that are needing to be spoken, feelings that are sort of held in that initial phase of meeting or interacting with this person, that then when the time is right, between the two of you, it's almost again the idea of like floodgates and gushing forth all these things that they wish they had said or been able to say, that you've been on their mind, they've been thinking of you. These feelings have remained with them, have grown with time. There's a lot that they are then able to say on the other side of kind of that heart chakra activation and whatever transformation or change takes place for them. And we also have construction. So this can tie into somebody who kind of reconstructs their life, is very focused on, transcending cycles, stepping into that best version of self that may work in construction, be very handy. Habitat for Humanity is coming up as well as something that may kind of take them at a distance. Maybe you meet them through Habitat for Humanity, but you're from two different kind of locations. So the idea again of like, there's a professional situation when you first meet. It's a lot of unactualized potential. You then kind of go your separate ways. That program concludes for you. Your time with that organization finishes, but you still sort of think about this person. They think about you. It takes time for the two of you to move back towards one another again. And we have Capricorn, which may factor somewhere prominently within their natal chart. This can also tie into the months of December and January as significant to the connection. We've got work connection, yeah, so that was coming through several times. Somehow professionally, you may know this person, or they work in the same industry as you. You may also have that connection of working on yourselves spiritually that sort of reunites you further down the road. And we've got morning person. So that ties in really well with that idea of, kind of we had the night owl. So the night owl and the morning person, time zone difference could be an issue here. Maybe this is somebody who started off in a lot of shadowy energy and they have since kind of become that light. They've created and are working toward balance of that light and shadow aspect of themselves. Got the letter Y. Gifted. So that can tie in with this idea of the goddess of the moon and the waterfalls, somebody who's psychically gifted through their spiritual awakening, maybe their clairaudience, their claircognizance, some prophetic skills and abilities, other kind of latent talents and gifts really activating, coming online. Feels that when you first meet this person, they're not standing fully in their purpose. And when you reconnect, they've almost like shifted or recalibrated their life in a way to where they're using these gifts, these spiritual gifts, these innate gifts, these creative gifts, the gift of language, artistic gifts, musical gifts. They're using that in some way to kind of spread a message, spread light, spread, their own authenticity and sense of joy and fulfillment out into the world. They may also be, teaching, like a music teacher, an art teacher, for example. And we have well-groomed, so that ties in with that energy of fastidious, somebody who may be very meticulous in their appearance, very impeccable in their manner of dress. They may keep their hair very short, very well-groomed. We've got tech industry, so more of that reference to kind of like an online connection. That can be this element of distance. Maybe you both work for a corporation, but you're in offices in two different countries, two different states. If it is two different states, like the United States, for example, it would almost be like somebody works on the West Coast, the other person works on the East Coast. So it's not feasible to like drive to one another. It would take a while to fly to one another. There's time zone issues. It's a lot that kind of is that blockade between the two of you. And we have lawyer. So this could be somebody who is in international law, somebody who wants to heal, somebody who wants to help. Maybe you meet them while in law school, for example, or they go back to school, they change their life, they decide to become a lawyer. They may have some legal troubles that they're needing to deal with that may cause them, again, that idea of like something with visa, paperwork, immigration, that they're needing to, go through lawyers. There's some kind of like red tape or procedure that kind of keeps them at a distance or causes distance to be created in this situation. And we also have artist, so that ties in with the idea of the gifted person, somebody who really kind of taps into these creative aspects within themselves. This may be something that is really heightened as they are going through a spiritual awakening, something where they kind of move out of working for the corporate world, working that 9 to 5, and they lean more into pursuing their art, making that a priority as well. This is also tying into the idea of like the divine artistry with how things happen is kind of like a closing message with this. Although this, new love is a bit further on the horizon, again, with the caveat that, you may date people very casually, you may form and forge connections with other people, but in terms of love, the vibration of love, the frequency of love, people that you exchange, a person rather, that you're exchanging the words I love you with, this person is further on the horizon for you. But it's something which is precisely choreographed by the divine timing at play, and it'll be like a work of art, each of you in the process of sort of working on the work of art, which is yourselves, in order to come together in kind of the perfect harmony and at just the right time further down the road. So I'm going to close this out with some initials, and this can be a first, middle, or last name of you or this person, or it could spell something out, just whatever resonates for you. We've got O, E, G, J, H, K, U, D, R, and S. So those are your messages, group 3. I hope that they resonated with you and that you enjoyed the reading. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, or share. If you'd like a personal reading, I offer them through my Etsy shop, and there's a link in the description box of the video for that. I offer a variety of pre-recorded video readings, written readings, and channeled letters. Turnaround time on everything is 5 to 7 days from the time of purchase. I also sell handmade jewelry, dream catchers, and sun catchers if you're interested in checking any of that out as well. And I've launched a second channel here on YouTube. It's called Lady of the Dawn Tarot, and there's a link in the description box as well as in the channel section of my page for that. The format there is a little different from here. I do pick-a-cards and general energy check-ins related to the subjects of spirituality, wellness, ascension, and self-love. So if any of that sounds interesting, I invite you to check that channel out. I thank you for your support there, as well as for your continued support here on this channel. I hope to see you again in another reading. Please take care and be well.